Thank you for coming back for a third episode of Weights and Wealth. We are very excited to have you with us here today. This is more, I guess, of our pilot episode. We kind of tried to jump right into some topics, but today we're going to go over our foundational values and thoughts behind weights and wealth. We'll show you the graphic in post-production if you're watching on YouTube. We'll throw up the beautiful hand-drawn graphic that we came up with 3 months ago back in September. It's just got some colored pencils and it's not the greatest artistic rendering in the world, but
I think you did an excellent job, Ted. It looks really good.
Anyways, I'm Ted. This is Nick, and this is Weights and Wealth.
All right, so we got this liquid death drink today. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. We are not a sponsorable show. Definitely not cash flow positive for next year or two, maybe.
Probably be a little while.
Yeah.
But we're just doing this for fun. So, but the marketing behind this is kind of neat. I think there was some high up marketing exec at one of the big tech companies, and he just started a branded water, Liquid Death. And he saw, all of the soft drinks that were kind of marketed it as healthy, as people.
Unicorn Fuzz, Bang, Super Creatine, that kind of a drink.
That and, any like Mountain Dew, it's always people being active and then drinking some sort of soft drink to refresh themselves. But he kind of did the opposite and had death associated with water, and it kind of caught people's attention, and now it's really starting to catch on. But it's in aluminum, not plastic. So
no plastic water bottles here.
A little better for you.
Yeah. Anyway, today we're going to jump into health and wealth, kind of the subject matter behind our name, Weights and Wealth. We think that your health is really your wealth, and your wealth has a very large impact on your health. A long time ago, I heard this quote by the Dalai Lama. Someone allegedly asked him, what's the weirdest thing about humans or something along those lines? And I'll read out what he said in response to that. Man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, and then dies having never really lived. I think this is a really powerful quote that really examines how people have very short-term thinking mindsets. People don't really delay gratification, especially in our Western culture where we have a real abundance of things. People oftentimes have a very short-minded way of thinking, and they don't want to do the hard thing to make life better for themselves down the road. It's all about what can give me pleasure right now, or what can give me money right now, what can make me big right now. These are a lot of the things that we want to kind of preach here on Weights and Wealth is like, it takes time to get wealthy. It takes time to build a physique that you're proud of. Like, these things don't happen overnight, and we wouldn't want them to, because the contentment and the happiness that you get from things that take hard work, that's a lot of the good in the process, right? Like it's not about the destination, it's the journey. You know, like this is all old wisdom, I think, that's very attributable to our current living these days.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, just trying to find the fastest way possible is really evident in, you know, especially TikTok, but all over social media. You know, the quickest way to get rich, there's the drop shipping fad, the affiliate marketing. You know, you don't really have to do any work. You don't have to show your face at all or put any time in. People just want to make as much money as quickly as possible. And
we're not looking down on having a side hustle. We like that. I mean, that's what we do, you know. I mean, this obviously isn't profitable, may never be. We're kind of doing it for fun, but like having a side hustle, if you're only working 40 hours a week, is a very, very good use of your time. If you're not going to spend that extra time leveling yourself up with growing your personal self or growing yourself within your career, having a side hustle is a great use of time. But what Nick was harping on is like, yeah, the get rich quick, the use steroids to get big immediately. That's probably not going to be the best for you in the long run. If you look at lottery winners, do you know what the statistic is? It's something crazy. I don't remember what it is, but it's something like 70 or 80% of people that win the lottery go broke because they don't know how to keep money. Like they've never made money like that before, and they don't understand what goes into keeping money. So like things, big windfalls that happen to you immediately, probably not going to be able to keep.
Yeah, and when you're working really hard towards something, it makes you appreciate the outcome a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. So why not have both? We've got some examples that we came up with and wrote down. And we're just going to go back and forth through some of these examples that we feel kind of demonstrate how health and wealth go together.
Yeah, because I mean, it does not have to be one or the other, and they really affect each other. You know, when you're healthier, you can focus better. You just are more of a doer throughout the day. And that's kind of where I was. You know, I mentioned that I'm an accountant. I do taxes. So we have seasons where, you know, I have to work 60 plus hours a week, and, you know, keeping my diet in order, just eating whole foods, working out, you know, trying to keep a program. We're still working like out 3 days a week. It just keeps your mind a lot clearer throughout the day. You know, absolutely. I'm not really experiencing the kind of brain fog that a lot of people can get.
Yeah, when you're healthier, your capacity for work is just that much more, right?
Yeah, and then I also find that I don't have to sleep as much when I'm eating really well. I don't know. Do you have any?
Yeah, I feel when everything's kind of dialed in for me as far as like my workouts and my nutrition, and I'm not drinking and I'm not drinking a lot of coffee, I don't need as much sleep. That's not to say that I wouldn't get better gains if I was sleeping 8 hours instead of 6 hours. Sleep is very, very important and a factor that a lot of people miss. But yeah, I think the more that you dial in on other areas, the more leverage you have in other areas like sleep to kind of have a little bit less of it if your diet's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Second example we have is that eating healthy does not have to be super expensive. I feel like this is a big myth, and especially on my social media page, Ted's Lift Help, I get a lot of questions about this because I eat a lot of steak and a lot of beef, and people are always like, isn't that so expensive? In my DMs, people are asking, how do you afford that? Like, I don't really think it's that expensive because I don't eat out much, and I just compare it to that. And when you compare eating like my butcher box steaks to what people spend going out, I feel like they spend a lot more eating out, even if it's fast food. So if we look at Chipotle, for example, when you get a Chipotle bowl, if you try to get double meat, that comes out to what, like
probably
10, 11, 12,
$12, $13, $14. Yeah.
Little north of $10, $12. And if you got, say you even got ground beef, say you even got grass-fed beef and you got ground beef and made a ground beef rice bowl. If I get a pound of grass-fed beef for $8, rice, if I have a 5-pound bag, a cup of rice is pretty much negligible in terms of pricing. I could throw in some frozen veggies. A bag of frozen veggies might go for $1.50. And if I'm only using a fifth of that, then I'm looking at like 30 cents. So start to add that up. Like I can probably get my own Chipotle bowl with double the amount of meat as a double meat Chipotle bowl and spend less at the grocery store. So like when you're cooking your own food and it's going to be healthier, it's actually going to be less expensive a lot of the time too, in my opinion, especially if you're trying to prioritize protein when you're going out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in relation to going out, people, on the weekends, it's very easy to spend, $100 at the bar in a night. And if you have like a workout program the following day, you might be incentivized to not go out and save some money.
Or even if you do go out because your friends are going out, maybe if you have that workout the next day, you get 2 drinks instead of getting 10 in a round for everyone, spending $100, $150.
Yeah, which we've all been there. So.
We've all been there. Sorry. You were going along with spending less at the bar when you go out with friends if you have a workout the next day?
Oh, yeah.
I cut him off. We're trying to get better at this podcast thing. Example 4. Working out in the morning can kickstart your day and make you more energized and productive. There was a 2021 study where they took 3 groups of high school girls. One of the groups did not eat or work out in the morning when they woke up. Another group ate, and another group worked out. 4 groups. The 4th group ate and worked out. What they noticed from this study was that eating breakfast and exercising in the morning had the biggest positive impact on cognition for the rest of the morning and throughout the day. So what this tells us is that prioritizing your workouts is going to help you think better throughout the day. This is an example where you're working out in the morning, but I fully believe, and there's a lot of studies that support that physical health supports mental health. So Nick hit on this earlier, how he felt that his brain and energy levels were much better when he was eating well and exercising during that busy season of accounting. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, I don't have time to go work out. I'm really busy. I think it's just prioritizing, right? And I think that you might feel as though you don't have time, but if you give yourself time and you implement it in, much like in episode 2, when we talked about with your budget, how you're budgeting and taking those allotments out for savings, budget into your time to exercise, because it's going to improve not only your health, but your capacity for wealth if you're able to be more productive.
Yeah, and I mean, even just off that, just having a routine, I think that kind of goes along with having the plan. If you have a routine, and it's hard to get started, but once you get into it, like working out every morning, eating well every day, it becomes a lot easier over time.
Yeah, if you just make some sort of a checklist for yourself to do something every day and keep yourself accountable for 3 weeks, by 21 days, like it's a habit, you know, and you're going to be much
just
better
becomes
off
second
from that
nature.
habit,
It's just what you do every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So example number 5 we have is that taking care of your body will reduce your future medical expenses. I mean, cardiovascular disease is one of the largest killers in America. And it costs us about $200 billion a year. So just by eating better, you greatly reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. And you can save yourself a lot of money down the line.
Yeah, and 80% of cardiovascular disease is preventable. I think upwards of 90% of chronic illness is preventable. In Western medicine, we don't really focus on preventable medicine, but just putting some of these lifestyle habits and a healthy diet and some exercise can go a long way in saving you not only money, but also saving you from stress and saving your health down the road. It's just one of those things, like, you have to commit. And if you're a person that's not healthy, like, you just have to decide if you want to get there by making baby steps, you know, like, no one's saying you have to go live like the Liver King and be isolated from society and have all those things he's got set in place to be healthy. Like, you can be very healthy just from making some food choices, like we hit on in episode 1 with eating 80% whole food diet. Just eating a healthy diet like that and weight training a few times a week can go a long, long way in making you healthy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we know that the Liver King, his way of life wasn't actually true. Do you hear he was taking like $15,000 worth of growth hormone?
Yeah, it's crazy. We're a little late on all that Liver King stuff, but it's just crazy how people distort things like that. And I think especially on social media, we look at these figures and we think that their excess of healthiness or wealthiness is what we should aspire to, when it's like the average person maybe shouldn't aspire to be like the 1%. Maybe we should aspire to be like the top 10 or 20% in a lot of areas of our life. You know, like maybe in your wealth, don't aspire to be a billionaire. Maybe just aspire to be financially free. Like, there's a difference in like those two levels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, now we're gonna get into our 5 F's. We introduced these in episode 1, and they're the pillars that we think kind of support and are integral in both your health and your wealth. So we'll start with our first one, fitness. Fitness is obviously important to your health. In this pillar, we include not just your exercise and being strong and physically fit, but we also put your diet in that section as well, and eating a healthy diet. And for obvious reasons, as we've mentioned, that's important to your health. It's also important to your wealth because, as we mentioned, being healthy and fit increases your capacity and your productivity for work and reduces your spending on medical costs, etc. And it really doesn't cost that much extra to have a $10 a month Planet Fitness membership and eat whole foods. Like, you can spend a lot more if you want, but at a base level, it really doesn't cost that much more.
Yeah, and also like as we talked about earlier, just healthcare costs are extremely expensive. So if you can take care of your health, then that will help your finances in the future.
Yeah. Not to mention, like, with where obesity is in this country, healthcare costs are not going to go down. The system is going to keep getting more and more overextended with the increase in chronic illnesses. So,
yeah, and it's much easier to prevent something than it is to fix something that has already happened or to treat it in the future.
Absolutely. Our next pillar is your finances. We just talked about how preventable disease is important for your finances, and that's how your health impacts your finances. Your wealth also is obviously supported by your finances because they're one and the same. Do you have anything to add to that one, Nick?
No, I think you nailed the wealth and finances part.
All right. Our next pillar is your faith. For health, I believe that spiritual health is a part of your health, just like your physical health is a part of your health, or your mental health is a part of your health. I think spiritual health is critical to your mental health. If you look at the blue zones, do you know what the blue zones are?
No, I don't.
All right, the blue zones, somewhat faulty research, but it's a good idea to talk about. The blue zones are regions of the world where there's an abundance of centenarians, or people that live to be over 100 years ago, over 100 years old. Some of these places include, I think, Okinawa in Japan, and then Sardinia in Italy, Seventh-day Adventists in Southern California, I think. There's a few different spots around the world where there seems to be more people that live to the age of 100. And one of the biggest commonalities throughout these different blue zones is that people get a lot of activity, and that people have a strong faith, and that people have close relationships to those around them.
Yeah, and if you also look at their diet, they tend to be eating very, just whole foods.
Yes, very whole food. Some of the diet stuff has been, I guess, argued a little bit in terms of eating more plant-based or eating less meat, but some of that research was pretty flawed. But in general, it's not that flawed of research. Like, it has really good ideas behind it and really good conclusions as far as like movement, eating whole foods, really good relationships to those around you, and your faith. Like, those are all very important things to have a long, successful life and be able to deal with stress.
Yeah, and I mean, like, your faith also really impacts your wealth. By having a faith, you're really sharing in a community with other people.
Absolutely.
From all diverse types of backgrounds, and you can always go to those people for advice. It's great for networking, although faith isn't
it's not the reason, but it's a side effect, I guess. 2 Corinthians 9:6-13. I do not remember the entire verse off the top of my head. Probably should have written it down, but it's about the cheerful giver, and basically it talks about how the more you give, the more that you wind up helping people, and the more glory to God, and the more you receive. So I think that's a really good passage if you want to go and look it up on your own, if that is your spiritual practice. I think it's kind of a good tie to the wealth aspect of faith. And then for us Christians, tithing is important for your wealth in terms of your budget. That's another reason to have a budget. If you don't budget properly, you're not going to be able to tithe because you're going to run out of money. You're going to spend the money that's just hanging out in your checking account. So,
and a lot of people believe that it does eventually come back around. That's not why you tithe, but
yeah. I mean, it helps other people, and it's what we're supposed to do, we believe. And I think that if you look at other religions, what goes around comes around, karma, like a lot of different people around the world, even if you're not Christian like we are, a lot of people believe in these principles for their faith and their success. Another pillar we have is family. We talked about, for your health, the blue zones and the relationships aspect, but also for your health, the people around you influence what you eat quite a bit. If your family eats healthy, there's a stronger chance that you're going to eat pretty healthy, and vice versa. It's unfortunate for a lot of people that don't grow up eating healthy because their family just doesn't really know much about dietary health. I think Nick and I are both incredibly fortunate to grow up in families that prioritized eating healthy and eating locally.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of extend that to family and friends, and just having people around you is immensely important to your health. I think we saw when we had the lockdowns, people just started, like, anxiety, depression went way up. There people just started having a lot more health problems, and it's just very important to have a community around you to support you.
Yeah, the downward spiral that happened with a lot of people during the COVID lockdowns, obviously, a lot of these pillars for health and for wealth, like the reason behind the idea is that these things essentially are all interconnected, and if one of these pillars isn't standing, your health or your wealth, which are both also kind of equal to each other, are probably gonna fail a little bit. So that's the thought process behind these two circles essentially standing on these 5 pillars. Our last one is freedom. So being free to choose your lifestyle and how you want to eat, how you want to exercise, your medical treatments. I think these are very important things, and a lot of times people may have a certain ideology and they may think that because they're right, everybody else should do what they do. Because you think that red meat is bad, everyone should be vegan and we should tax meat. I would propose that that is a horrible idea, and that people should be free to choose how they want to live. Obviously, we're going through a lot of health and wealth decisions here. We're telling you what we suggest in these podcast episodes, but we don't want to force anyone to live the way that we live. I think that's a recipe for disaster. And I think that you see that in a lot of totalitarian governments throughout history. They generally just don't work in the long run because it's better for people to be able to choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, that's why we in America, we have abundance of wealth. People can go out, start their own business, do whatever they want to.
Pursue their passions, see what needs to be fixed, and do it on their own without the being weighed down by the bureaucracy and red tape of government and regulations. Being able to do what you think is best may not be best for you 100% of the time. You might make mistakes, but I feel like for everybody in the long run, having freedom to choose what you want to do for your health is good. And then also on the wealth side, being free to choose how you want to spend your money and what you want to do in terms of your career is also a major benefit that we're very fortunate to have here in America.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like there will be times where you kind of have to emphasize one of these pillars over another. I mean, they're all important. But sometimes, you know, you're going to be focused on putting your head down, getting through a bunch of work. And other times you're going to have to take a step back, you know, spend more time with your family, friends. But there's a place for everything, and a balanced life should have all 5 pillars in it.
Definitely. There's different seasons of your life where sometimes you're grinding and working. I remember when we lived together in Milwaukee, I was putting in like 14-hour days at the gym, and you were, I think, in your busy season, and we were just, both of us were just absolutely grinding. But that was a season of our life where, you know, we didn't really have a lot else going on. We were just kind of out of college, and we were able to put a ton of that energy into work. But then, you know, like when we're older and we have families, you got to spend time with your family, and that becomes a priority. So there's different seasons of your life, and there's different times to push down on the throttle of different pillars here, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that just about wraps up this episode.
Yeah. We hope that we are getting better. We know that sometimes what we say doesn't come out in the exact phrasing that we would like. But, you know, that's just how it goes when you're learning how to do a podcast, I guess. So if you have any recommendations for us, or if you would like to keep the discussion going, please head to our social media and converse with us and share with your friends. Also, if you like our show, give us a review. We'd love to hear how we're doing. We wouldn't want to force anyone, of course, to give us a 5-star review, but it would help us spread our message.
Definitely better than a 1-star review.
Definitely better than a 1-star. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.